What if some of the beliefs shaping your relationships aren't actually yours? What if you could deeply desire a beautiful relationship, consciously believe that you love men, and still be carrying an inherited story about them that makes the very love you desire difficult to receive? That's something I've been confronting in myself recently, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. In this video, I'm speaking about the core wounds and projections of the feminine, primarily since women are the gatekeepers. We are the multipliers and birthers of our collective experience. But it's not to say that men shouldn't continue to watch and ask themselves the questions I ask in this video and gain some insight to the feminine experience, and even reflect on their own mothering and what imprints she may have been carrying about men that translated to how her sons may have been perceived, so that we can all have more balanced and harmonious love stories that all of our hearts deeply desire on some level. I learned that despite how we think we might feel about men, there is a large, vast, collective feminine waters, if you will, that have some very painful beliefs about men that we are all swimming in. We may think we're floating above them, but we are still in the contaminated ocean of the collective feminine consciousness. I personally don't know any woman in my vicinity that has not felt devastated by men at some point in their life. I can't tell you how many times I've had different coworkers suddenly drop this casual bomb, "I hate men," with such conviction. And I'm like, ow, wow, that really hurts my heart to hear. But I can't blame them. I get it. I wholeheartedly understand how that could be someone's experience. I invite you to take a moment and ask yourself right now, what have my mother and feminine elders in my family taught me about men? As a child, what did I absorb about men and maleness? I invite you to pause the video and really think about this. Really sink and feel what your body answers before your mind does. Some of the answers surprised me. So many heard growing up, men are pigs, men are trash, men can't be trusted, men are controlling, men are dangerous. And when I deeply reflected on my own answers, it brought me to tears. Memories flashed of my parents fighting, my mother crying in the bathroom, calling him a tyrant, feeling unsafe, my father yelling, all of us being scared. I was taught men are mean, manipulative, unreliable, taught that they are much stronger and more capable physically and can fix and do just about anything practically, but when it comes to having capacity for anything related to the feminine or emotions, they have zero tolerance. I learned that they are cold. I was told in many forms or another that men only want one thing, that they only use and discard women. My mother told me in junior high that she felt uncomfortable that all the guys seemed to look at women only as objects, and she didn't know how to protect herself or say no to anything. And my heart sank. For the first large portion of my life, I also didn't have a voice. I also experienced lust for solely my physical appearance and how that degraded my self-worth over time. My grandmother on my dad's side was so bitter towards her first husband that she was forced to marry by her parents because he got her pregnant at 15. And when my grandmother was describing him, it sounded like he may have been a bit persistent, and the words for full conscious consent were not super present or available in her day. she didn't seem to want it. My grandmother on my mother's side was cheated on and left for another woman. And for some reason, that grandmother would always tell me, always play the field, which I now realize was not beneficial advice, especially not for me. It's as if she was almost trying to protect me from investing too much or relying on one man who might not be right for me. So then it hit me like a brick. Wow, this is all why I've struggled so much in relation to men. Now, I'm not saying there aren't harmful men in the world or discrediting the multitude of painful experiences that women have had over millennia. We absolutely need refined discernment and communication. Healing our fear of men doesn't mean teaching ourselves to ignore the feeling that something is wrong. The goal isn't indiscriminate trust, it's becoming clear enough to distinguish intuition from inheritance, to recognize when the man in front of us is actually unsafe and when an old wound is expecting an old story to happen again. Most importantly, we in today's age need to excavate the places in our own souls where we may have absorbed, perpetuated, or participated in dynamics and beliefs that didn't serve us. Not to excuse what has harmed us, but to ask the much more empowering question, what is actually ours to heal? Not to bypass, but to truly heal and forgive. A little side note about quantum physics, it explains that how we observe something contributes to its outcome and behavior. Now, that's a whole other rabbit hole for a different day. Another realization that pierced my soul in ways we don't consciously think about, but that is a collective elephant in every room. Whose life is more valuable, a man or a woman? We know it, they know it. And it is rightful and noble for a man to lay down their lives for women and children and protect them. We hear that in movies, Titanic, all women and children get on the boat. But it feels heavy that there's a collective lack of respect and honor for one another. When I really let myself feel what that really means, rather than treating it as something we've simply accepted as normal, I felt this unexpected wave of sadness for men. The weight of being implicitly told that part of your role is to be the protector, the one expected to step toward danger, the one whose fear is supposed to matter less. I paused and imagined what it might feel like to grow up with an underlying message that your safety is somehow less precious, that courage is expected of you even when you're afraid, and your vulnerability may not be met with the same tenderness. Something about that landed in my body as grief. Women spend a lot of time contemplating the ways that we have been wounded by men, but very little time contemplating the emotional weight of being a man. So now ask yourself, what did you wish you learned about men and masculinity? Again, I invite you to pause and really reflect on this. For me, I wish I had learned that they're actually very intuitive and emotionally sensitive, even if that sensitivity looks different from mine. I wish I was taught that many men genuinely love contributing to and providing for the women that they love. I wish I was taught how big their love actually is and how much goodness is in their hearts. I wish I was taught how to receive their love in a healthy way. I wish I was taught I didn't need to perform, overgive, mother, control, or manipulate men in order to be loved and valued by them. Whew, didn't expect that. I wish I was taught that the different strengths and weaknesses of men and women are complementary and not a case for battle. The biggest thing I wish I had been taught was not to sleep with them too soon, knowing how deeply a woman can bond to men, and it doesn't allow for the discernment process of getting to know them and see if you truly align. The list goes on. I learned that the father wound that I have travels through the mother line. In other words, I absorbed the perspective of men and my father through her lens, through the lens of the elder women in my ancestry. So if we grew up inside of this kind of distorted template I'm speaking on, despite what we wish we believed and despite what we may consciously know is true now about men and relationships, we've likely moved through the world in a fractured state and behaved unconsciously to perpetuate some of the unwanted experiences in relationships. So the question is, how do we give ourselves permission to love and be deeply held and safe in the arms and consciousness of men? There's a deeply unconscious evolutionary loyalty that we have to our mothers and our ancestral systems, men and women both. If we do not address this underlying vow and become aware of how we've been entrained, we will keep sabotaging or closing ourselves off from the love that we desire out of rightful self-protection and just repeating the patterns. We are called to be the alchemists of our generation. How do we sustain masculine and feminine polarity? I used to think polarity was mostly about learning how to be more feminine, how to receive, soften, surrender, let a man lead. But I realized, how was I supposed to soften towards something that a part of me still believed was dangerous? How am I supposed to receive from men if somewhere underneath that desire I've learned that receiving creates dependence and dependence makes me vulnerable? How does one surrender control when control may have been one of the ways the women before us learned to survive? We are encouraged to become conscious of everything that made femininity feel unsafe in the first place. And then slowly, through discernment and new experiences, allow ourselves to discover that we don't have to relate to every man through the wounds created by the ones who came before him. I want to become skilled in seeing men more clearly. I want to be able to receive a man's love without being frightened of how much it means to me. I want to know myself well enough that I can recognize healthy masculinity when I encounter it and allow myself to enjoy it. We change our inheritance by honoring the hurts of the ones who came before us, declare a different standard is possible for the love that we crave, and most importantly, we must forgive ourselves for what we did not have the awareness for at the time and the mistakes that we may have made, and trust and hold positive expectations of the divine intelligence orchestrating us all. May my voice be a gift to someone. May we all unite as a collective to spread more love and respect to all of our hearts. May we dissolve and alchemize anything that no longer serves us or keeps us from living deliciously. Living deliciously. Living more lucid. Please let me know in the comments anything you would like to see, anything you would like me to share. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Love you.
Living deliciously, living deliciously. Mm-hmm.
That's something I've been confronting in myself recently, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. Can you stop, please? In this video,